So it's time to speculate on some Sonic games again. With the next new Sonic game potentially still being a couple years away, many have been wondering what will fill the gap between then and now. Sonic X Shadow Generations was the most recent Sonic game, featuring a Sonic Generations remaster, with the addition of Shadow Generations for new content. But the question is, what will the next Sonic remaster be? And I'm using the term remaster pretty loosely here. It could be a port, remaster, or even a full-blown remake that they go for next. So in this video, I'm going to go over which Sonic games I think would be best for each of those categories. And I'm not saying these are necessarily my most wanted games next, just what I think is most likely, and pretty doable for Sonic Team. My ideas here could come true, or they could be entirely wrong. I'm just speculating this time around, so nothing I say here is concrete. Some of my suggestions could either be a port, remaster, or remake, and I'd still be happy. But I chose to only go with one of each for this video, to make things interesting. With that said though, what even is the difference between a port, remaster, and remake? Well, for a port, I consider that to be an older game being re-released on newer consoles and PCs. It may have some minor bug fixes and performance improvements, but it's still the same game at the end of the day. Think Sonic Adventure 2 Battle for the GameCube. A remaster is similar to a port where the core game is still the same, but includes any number of additions or changes with things like updated visuals, light story changes, and/or bug fixes and performance improvements, something like Sonic Colors Ultimate. And finally, remakes take an original game, but remake it from the ground up entirely from scratch, which means any number of changes could take place, just as long as the game is still recognizable to the original. Examples are the mobile versions of the classic Sonic games, which eventually made their way to Sonic Origins, or even something like Project 06. I know that isn't an official release, but it still fits. So now that we know what each category loosely is, I'm going to go over which Sonic game I'd want to see for each one, starting with what I want to see ported next. Alright, so hopefully this one is obvious if you've seen my top 5 favorite Sonic games video, but the Sonic game that I want to see ported the most, to PC specifically at the very least, is Sonic Unleashed. This is a game that still looks visually incredible, and aside from some very minor tweaks that could be made to the metal collecting, I don't think anything needs to be done to Sonic Unleashed in terms of a remaster or remake. So all I'd really want is for it to be ported to modern consoles, and especially to PC. I almost made a video a couple years ago about why Unleashed needed a PC port, and even though I didn't make that video yet, I'm still hoping for one even now. I know this isn't the most beloved Sonic game ever, and some would want the Werehog gameplay to get changed around, which would be very nice if the game did receive a remaster or remake, but since I already think the game is great on its own, a port is all I'd ever really need for Sonic Unleashed, to be able to enjoy it fully. I think Unleashed is the most obvious answer for the next Sonic port, because almost all the other main contenders, Colors, Generations, even Lost World, have all now gotten their remasters or ports, and anything older than Unleashed would probably need a remaster at the very least. I think the game is in that perfect sweet spot where it isn't too old to where it absolutely needs a remaster just yet, and it's still good enough to get by with just a port of the game. So in terms of my most wanted Sonic port, and hopefully pretty likely port at this point, it has to be Sonic Unleashed. Now onto what I think should be the next remaster. Well, I've actually got a few candidates here for this one, but I'm gonna go with the adventure games. Now before you say this should get a remake, I do agree, but also I think there's something not only more deserving of a remake, but also a lot more likely to get it, which you'll see in just a bit. I also think that the adventure games are already good enough on their own, and don't need a complete remake, even if it would be peak, but again, they're already very good, and very playable right now. Some main things I'd want to see from a remaster would be plenty of bug fixes and improvements, since the current ports we have didn't do very much in that department, but of course some updated graphics, not a full-blown overhaul, but just some enhanced ones, would be super nice as a definitive adventure game package, which I also think should be the main reason for the remaster, combining both games into one single game where you just choose which one you want to play, just like Sonic X Shadow Generations did. That way you can just buy the single package and get both games at their hopefully best. I do think that the adventure games could also benefit a lot from a complete remake, and to be honest, some Sonic remasters are kinda both at the same time, if that makes any sense. So however they decide to remaster or remake the adventure games, because you know they eventually will at one point, I think they'll manage to do it pretty well. As long as Sonic Team is the one doing it, please just don't give the adventure games the Colors Ultimate treatment, they really don't need it. In fact, no Sonic game needs that. Just let Sonic Team handle all ports, remasters, and remakes from now on. They've proven that they can do a good job at it, and I don't care if it takes longer if it means a better product in the end. So in terms of the next Sonic remaster, if it doesn't get a full-blown remake, I think it should be Sonic Adventure 1 and 2. And finally, for the Sonic remake that I think is by far the most likely, and I actually do want to see the most, is Sonic Heroes. And now that might sound pretty weird at first, especially if you haven't been keeping up with recent Sonic news, or just don't like Heroes in general, but I think Sonic Heroes has the best shot at being the next Sonic game remake. I don't want to get too into leaks here, since they're completely speculatory, but there was a rumor of a Sonic Heroes remake a few months ago, which now after seeing the ending of Sonic Movie 3, would actually make a lot of sense if Sega is going to continue making games to coincide with the movies, like they did for Shadow Generations. Metal Sonic's first debut game was Sonic CD, but that game already has plenty of re-releases and remakes, even as recently as 2022 with Sonic Origins, so a Sonic CD remake wouldn't really make much sense. Metal Sonic's next main appearance, however, is Sonic Heroes, since he's the big bad during all of it. So I think Heroes would be the most likely choice for a Metal Sonic related remake. Another thing I've also seen pointed out is that a Heroes remake wouldn't even be starting from scratch for Sonic Team at this point, since they've been making new assets for levels based on Sonic Heroes for years at this point. Sonic Generations and the Sonic Racing games had Seaside Hill and Ocean Palace assets. The racing games also had Casino Park and Bingo Highway. Shadow Generations most recently just had Rail Canyon and Bullet Station levels, and Egg Fleet and Final Fortress have also shown up in a bunch of other Sonic games. That just leaves Grand Metropolis and Power Plant, which can be reworked from Metropolis and Sonic Forces because they're both really similar, Frog Forest and Lost Jungle, which are just basic jungle levels and wouldn't be too difficult to make, and Hang Castle and Mystic Mansion, which is the only one that would probably need some fully new assets to be made, or just recolor Kingdom Valley from Shadow Gens. Anyways, point being, that a Sonic Heroes remake would be both not very hard for Sonic Team to do, and would go perfectly alongside what the movies are currently doing, which is a great way to get general audiences more engaged with the games, just like they did with Shadow Gens for the Year of Shadow in 2024. There doesn't need to be an entire year of Metal Sonic, but I think a Heroes remake would be the best choice for a remake. Heroes isn't the most beloved Sonic game amongst fans, with many bugs and issues being present within the game, so an entire remake of the game can give Sonic Team the chance to fix those issues, and make Sonic Heroes a great game that a lot of people love. For the most part, I think the controls need to be completely overhauled, and a lot of other gameplay tweaks can be made if it's a remake, but the core of the game, as well as all the levels, can stay the same. Some additions to the story would also be nice, although that'd probably mean using the new voice cast, which I'd be fine with. However, I know not everyone would be, but I still think fleshing out the story, with longer cutscenes and better stage transitions, would be nice. I also think that if they're gonna be making this to coincide with the movies, they should also focus on Metal Sonic a bit more. I don't know how far that means they should go with it, but at the very least more cutscenes with him would be nice. However, I think if they truly want to take advantage of the game being a remake, they should add on an entire new story to the game, which can consist of Metal Sonic, and honestly whoever else they want to include. Could just be Metal Sonic by himself, but he switches movement types, or add in some other robots for him to run with. Just throwing out ideas here. So for my most wanted Sonic remake, I think it should be Sonic Heroes. Not only because I think it'd be easy to do, but also because I like Sonic Heroes, and I want it to have a second chance at leaving its mark on the series. So to recap, I'd like to see Sonic Unleashed get ported to other consoles and PCs, the adventure games to get remastered, if they aren't able to be fully remade, and for Sonic Heroes to be the next main Sonic game remake. Do you agree? If not, which games do you want to see ported, remastered, or remade? Leave a comment down below. Whatever does end up being remastered next, as long as Sonic Team is the one doing it, I think it'll turn out pretty good. Leave a like on the video, and hit the subscribe button to see more Sonic content from me, and with that, I'll see you next time.